straight up to the night, and there you stand, pin pricked on a skyboard, desolated.
Well, hello everyone. I tried to do a, you know what I tried to do? Because it's the first time I did a scheduled one, which I think is a good thing. And then I thought I'd be smart and put some background music. I've seen other people's live streams and they start with some music. It's a nice thing to overlay. And then I was thinking I'll obviously put some of my own tracks on because I'm not going to put someone else's tracks on without their permission, and I don't have any of my own tracks in iTunes. So what I found was this is some of you might recognize this. This is Cathedral Parkway. It's a bluegrass band that I kind of used to play with. I guess we don't really play together anymore. Definitely not these days. Colin Davin's in this, and Jacques cello, and that's Caroline singing. There you go. So thanks everyone. This is the second live stream, and I'll be doing, the plan is to do more of these over the weeks and months as we dealing with this crisis, because it's nice to be together and it's nice to talk to people. I don't know about you, but I found a lot of people have been calling up. It's really nice actually to talk to a number of people I haven't talked to on the phone for quite a while. So it's a really very nice thing to do. Got to look for the silver linings. Oh, thanks, Roger. So it looks like we've got a number of people here, and also our guest of honor for today is already in the chat. I like to try and give it a little bit of a buffer, but make sure everything's working before I'll call up our guest. But yeah, hi John from Texas. Great to have you again. Julie, and Julie's tuning in from Australia. That's a nice. You might win the longest distance award for tuning in. So thank you, Julie. Hope you. I don't know what time it'd be. I guess it'd be early morning. Roger, Pat, a lot of people here. Summer school people, and actually that reminded me of the summer school. Just that. Playing that recording just there. There's James Erickson, one of our teachers at CGC. He's out in Long Island. There's Gohar. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I mainly sent out an email to CGC people here, so we're probably going to get a nice CGC family reunion hangout. So yeah, what have you all been doing since we last checked in? How have you been spending your time? Have you been working on new pieces? I know Evita's been knitting a sweater or a jumper, as they say in Australia. I've been coordinating a lot of these sort of little experiments on live streams. I did one this morning with Michael and Evita for their swing dance community. And we're also digging into the exams for Classical Guitar Corner, all the people who did their exams. So what have you been doing the last 48 hours since we were on here with Ben? That was a really successful stream, by the way. So thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. Ben was really happy. We sort of didn't intend to talk about his album, but it really was a nice way that we went, because you could hear some stories about the origins of his pieces and a couple of stories about the recording. And I know Ben said he was really elated to do that because this is the kind of things that will bring us joy during this time. So Richard is painting his house down in New Zealand. Hi, Richard. Thanks for tuning in. Don't fall off the ladder while listening to this. Stay safe. Or maybe it's a little less dramatic. Maybe it's painting inside. Um, Steven's playing guitar. He's doing his Berkeley Online course for recording. That's great. Um, yep. Ember Craig is saving 2 hours of commuting each day from working from home. That's nice. Mats is tuning in from Italy. Mats, we wish you all the best. I know things are probably pretty dire over there at the moment. I was just on the phone last night to Raphael and Janet Agostino, who are very familiar to many of you, and I said to them maybe they should come on and just have us say hello in one of these live sessions just to check in, because it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to people. So maybe all the people who know Raph and Janet, maybe give me a thumbs up or a good day. You can put a good day into the chat if you want to hear from them on one of the other sessions. Oh, and yes, I also did a video that was shared a little more than I thought. Actually, it's a video I saw. I had a couple of calls from teachers who teach at major universities, and they're just not familiar with the technology for teaching. And so they called up, and we had a conversation, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to make a video for you, because I was saying things like press this button and do that, and it was a little confusing. So I just I made that video, and so I put it up on my Facebook page, and I see a lot of good days coming through. I put it up on my Facebook page, specifically for musicians to do teaching, because a lot of musicians are now looking for either other ways to support themselves and definitely moving their teaching online. We'll talk to Gohar about that in a little moment. Derek is working on an urgent project at his work to quantify the virus's effect on business. That sounds like a pretty important project. So lots of good A's that came in for Raf and Janet. So I think we should definitely bring them in. They seem pretty keen. They looked very well last night. It's it's sort of late summer, early fall, early autumn down there, and so the sun looked really good, and they're doing very well. But of course, Australia every country's got a little bit of a different place at the moment in the way that they're dealing with things. So Janet's still being asked to work with kids. I don't know if many of you know, but Janet works with kids with learning disabilities, and it's one thing to have online education for adults or young, or teenagers and above who can deal with screens, and that's a whole other thing to deal with young kids on online education. But young kids, very young kids with special needs, that is a huge challenge, and I don't think she or any of us would really know how to deal with that. So anyway, well, it's about 10 past, and I did promise Gohar that I would call her in 10 minutes just to get the ball rolling. So how about we give Gohar a call? All right, so let me do my shenanigans. Here we go.
Hello, hello.
Hey, hang on just a second. I'm going to press a couple of buttons, make this
Okay, I
happen.
stopped my YouTube
There you
because
are.
Hello. And hi, everyone. Am I on a screen? Because I stopped my YouTube. I have no idea what people are seeing.
Yeah, I think you can if you wanted to. I believe even if you pause your YouTube video, you will still get the live chats. I'm not sure, but I'll do my best to read out any questions to you
Okay.
that come through. And but anyway, great to see you. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Same as all the New Yorkers in
Stuck
a
inside.
weird lockdown.
Well, it's technically not like you're allowed to leave your
I
house,
know,
right?
that's true.
Yeah, it's just there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a
going on a run this morning because it was like a beautiful sunny day. and the streets are totally empty. So I am definitely not getting close to anyone, not infecting anyone. But it's nice to get outside and breathe some fresh air. So we're not totally. I'm still getting the live chat, I think, because I have the live chat separate.
Okay.
So I should be okay. I can reach what people are writing. I just don't see our video because I stopped it in case there's feedback.
Okay, no worries. Well, yeah, I mean, so, I'm curious to know, have you been, I know you've got an album coming up, so we can talk about that a little bit, but have you been working on that? Is that something you've been occupying your time in the last few days?
Honestly, it hasn't been much different.
Okay.
I think I was like, well, I haven't been to Manhattan, which is somewhere I go to Manhattan, like I live in Queens. I go to Manhattan like 3 to 4 times a week. So I haven't been to Manhattan since last Thursday. That was my last in-person student. And most of my day generally is between Skype students and in-person students. So now it's just all of them are Skype students. So I don't go to the studios where I teach. That's really been the only change. But other than that, the day to day of waking up, teaching, practicing, sitting in front of the computer, it's I haven't noticed much of a difference.
You know, I know what you're saying, and I think for a lot of classical guitarists, they perhaps more than others, and well, we had two classical guitarists that also do a lot of stuff with computers to boot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. That some things in that regard haven't changed too much, but I think there is a mental weight. Like you're right, we're not locked down, but I kind of act like we are. I don't really go out except to go shopping. I should really just go on a long walk.
Yeah, it's nice. There's definitely less people. I mean, this is New York. It's constantly crowded. It's less people on the streets. So it feels, at least to me, like I was talking to Jordan, somehow for me it feels like it's the opposite. It feels a lot calmer. Even though like there's a crisis going on, you feel like the whole world has sort of slowed down. So you don't feel like you're in this like rat race trying to catch up with everyone. And if you don't do something, you're gonna fall behind everybody else doing something. And like there's this like stress of like not falling behind. Now everyone has to like take a moment and slow down.
Right.
And because we're forced to. So now anything I do, I feel so productive.
Oh, nice. Oh, great. Well, I'm glad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
think about it. Even though I don't do anything different, like I'm still, the grocery stores are open, so I can go get food. I don't linger in grocery stores anyway. Um, a walk outside is still allowed. I would say like take advantage of it while you can, just in case. Although like they keep saying they're not gonna like lock you down inside your house. So it's nice when it's like sun. Sun is good for you, and if you wanna, it's good for your immune system.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was talking with, well, actually, Evita was talking with some friends from Rome, and Nikki's obviously got family, Nicoletta Tedesco, she's got family in
Yeah.
Italy. And yeah, it's sort of really one person at a time to go out and get groceries or to walk a dog or what have you. But that is really kind of more of a lockdown. But so you've been teaching, well, you're very experienced with teaching people on Skype. So
Yeah.
it's not a new thing.
Yeah, a couple of the students, I saw their names, whom I torture on a regular basis online from very, very far away. Yeah, so it's
Oh, sorry, I was curious to know because you know how I put out that little video about Zoom last night. I'm not sure
yeah.
if you saw it, but I'm curious to know some of your thoughts. What are some of the things that make the process easier, or you find helpful with? I mean, you use Skype mostly, is that
I
right?
use Skype or FaceTime.
Face-
So if the person has an Apple machine, we use FaceTime or Skype. Sometimes it's nice to have one or the other as a backup.
Right.
But with Windows, we just use Skype. I haven't used Zoom. I've used it once, and because I wasn't familiar with it, it just seemed a little too complicated for me to like be able to know it so well to explain it to someone who might not be so familiar with the computers in general, because it's a lot of times it's confusing and people don't use it all the time.
Right.
So, but after watching your video, it actually cleared up a lot of things, and I can see how Zoom has a lot of advantages that Skype and FaceTime don't. But I just, instead of sharing my screen, for example, I always have my iPad or the music that I'm teaching, so it's low tech. I just like hold the iPad to
Right.
the screen,
Yeah.
and just be like here, or the music, or we usually do try to. have exactly the same edition. So if a student has their own edition, I ask them to send it to me. Or if it's something that I have decided that they're going to learn, then I send them the music. So I can say, third measure, second line, whatever. So we are looking at the same fingering, same layout on the page to make it faster. And then they just write it themselves instead of me, let's say, annotating and sending it to them. And that way it's kind of like, it's the same interaction. It's just instead of a screen being shared, I just turn my iPad around and show it. So it's been low tech. For the cameras, I haven't set up like a whole entire section with like a second camera and stuff, which sounds like a really awesome idea. I just get up and show.
Yeah.
So it's definitely low tech, even though it's on a screen.
Nice.
The challenges are quality of the speed of the internet. So sometimes when the internet is slow, from usually the student's end, because I try to have the best internet I can here, or if it's like far away, if it's like a remote location where they might not have the highest speeds, sometimes there's lag or the picture quality isn't awesome. It's a little pixelated. The sound can be a little bit distorted. Those are kind of like the limitations. We just kind of work with it. And sometimes one day is better than the other.
Right.
And the two-dimensional part. Like I can't reach over and be like,
right.
This is how you hold your hand. I have to show, and the student has to have the ability to transfer that from a two-dimensional picture to their own three-dimensional space. So I try to show from as many angles as I can, explain in different ways. But so far, it's worked for the most part. And for people who find that it's not for them, they don't continue the lessons.
Have you ever? I've found myself sometimes when you're really trying to, you're in the moment and you're trying to communicate something, and you just sort of forget that there's a screen. And I actually sometimes do this because I think I can look differently.
I've totally done that. I find myself looking like this, and I realize like that's not really helping. So then I'm like, can you just move? Totally. I think it's just human like nature to just be like, oh yeah, I want to see that, and it's just totally. Yeah, you get used to it, and it's such an awesome tool because some of my students are literally from everywhere in the world, including Australia. So
maybe in the future, things will flip around, and we'll sort of accidentally press their face to try and turn them off.
That'd be like, oh, is he talking? Mute.
You know what? I don't want to be here anymore, so I'm just going to end this call and I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, when I did this the other day with Ben, it worked really, really well. It's not going to sound great to you, but it will sound great to everybody else when we play some audio. And so tell us about your latest project. It's interesting because you've done a DIY approach on certain aspects, right? So
all of them.
All of it. Okay, well tell us what's going on.
The first CD I recorded was about 8 years ago. And again, I did everything myself because I just like this stuff. Maybe it's because I'm an only child. I like doing things myself. I want to learn how to do it. I figured like you can look up anything you want and you'll find the instructions on how to do it. So I did it 8 years ago, and back then I used like really minimal technology. I just used like an equivalent of a Zoom recorder, which was it's made by Sony. They don't make it anymore. I used that to record, and then I used the software that came with it to edit and then add reverb and all of that. This time around, I upgraded my equipment, so I bought a nice pair of stereo microphones, the Neumanns, and I got the interface, and I I did the recording onto my computer, which is like a little bit fancier. I did the recording myself. I did it exactly in like this corner. I didn't sit in this direction because I actually realized that it matters what's in front of you. Because if I sit with the desk in front of me, it cuts the sound. The vibration is like, it's different. So some of my Instagram videos, I had to change that too. So I did the recording myself. I did the editing. It takes an incredible amount of time. And sometimes you really have to just stop because you just can't listen to the same piece with as much detail as I would be listening to it, because I'm trying to really fix everything I possibly can in terms of just like the editing, the flow, how much time you want between tracks and all of that stuff. And then I did that within like 2 months. I recorded in December and January, and then I spent February editing all of those tracks. And now it's at the stage where I'm designing the cover, and I've been sharing some of the images of like as things come along. I kind of share the picture of the cover, And that's again, like that's something I feel like a lot of musicians or guitarists or we don't have hobbies because what other people's hobbies is like for the guitar, like most of my students, they do guitar for a hobby. So that's their escape from their profession. I can't have guitar as a hobby, it's my job. So my hobbies are like taking pictures, drawing, fiddling around with the computer. So like designing the CD, it's something useful for me. Like it's obviously for my career, but it's also fun because it's so different from plucking strings and listening to music.
Can I ask, have you already decided on a cover?
Yes, I've
Oh,
already.
damn it.
Yes.
I was gonna say
What?
because we could maybe we could do a poll. We could ask the audience because we could show I could show it on the
Oh,
screen some of the options.
I already did. The
Ah,
cover was decided, and actually the cover, it dictated the whole entire design based like the color palette. I this is kind of funny because I am usually the photographer and I'm the techie in my relationship, but and I have all like the camera equipment, so I
mm.
had to have Jordan. Jordan's the boyfriend. I gave him the camera, and I was like, "Here are all the settings. Take pictures." So we took like 200 pictures, and I
Right.
finally decided which one I wanted to do. And we went to Long Island City, which is like for anyone familiar with New York. We take a bunch of pictures, and I found like one that I like. I realized that I'm a horrible poser. It's like it's incredibly hard for me to like pose. I just like I don't know. And because we don't have like a professional photographer sort of telling you, lift your arm, lift your finger, move this muscle, like it was just us. So we took a lot of pictures, but there was one that I liked and I can actually show in a very low tech version. This is the cover. So it's kind of like this bluish with the stairs and stuff with the title. So that dictated the rest of the design. Um, but yeah, I kind of took autonomy on that. It's just like I made all the decisions.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's a really complete work of art. It's got all the different elements that you went through and decided. So that's fantastic. No, I just thought it would be a fun little interactive
Yeah.
experiment. We could get people voting, but we there's no more decisions to make.
I think mostly it was if I had many options where I couldn't decide, that was going to be my backup plan to like turn to social media and just have everyone chime in to see
Right.
what's like. But out of the pictures that we took and that I kind of was considering, there was one that was no question I wanted to use, and the others didn't really like meet the standard. So I figured I'm going to go with that, and then it dictated everything else, so options were limited.
Well, Stephen, Judy, Sana, Donna, Carrie, and Jana all say it looks great. Looks good, nice,
Well,
great,
yes,
amazing.
I'm seeing the list.
So,
The fun part or the most time consuming part is trying to delete a background because obviously like
mm,
the photo in the front cover I didn't really like delete anything, but for the rest of the design I decided to use this is kind of like the rest of and this is how this is how the CD thing works. You
mm.
get like this one panel with all of the six ones. Oops, sorry. And I had to delete the background for all the photos for the guitar. And this one was okay because I looked it up and I was able to find like a picture of my own guitar, like from my luthier's website, that had a very plain background in the back. So it was easy to delete the background. But then I had to find exactly the same image of my guitar from the front. So because my idea was to make it, give me one moment. I have a mock-up. Hold on. So
I
I
just
had this idea. This is the mock-up of
oh
the
nice.
digipack.
Oh, I see what you
This is
did.
the non-guitar stuff I like to do, right? So when this is tiny, but when you open it, it's gonna have like this guitar, but when you look on the back, it has the back of the guitar, right? So I needed to have exactly the same proportions. So I had to take the picture here, but from inexperience, I took it with this in the back, and it wasn't just like plain white background where I could just click delete background and it would like do the right thing. So I'm sitting there with my finger on a touchpad trying to delete exactly the right pixels next to a black fretboard that has these stupid bamboo things. Try to not like cut it because it's just deleting a color. So that took hours, but it's now done.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm gonna see if I can do something silly
Hmm.
and bring. So I don't know if this is gonna work. Um, but I have, I don't know if you know me or not, Gohar, but I have a little bit of a goofy sense of humor.
Okay.
It's, yes, yeah, I don't know if you know that, but
I would
anyway,
imagine
so
you would.
hang on.
I usually perceive you as a serious person,
Really?
incredibly nice, but serious person. I haven't seen the goofy
Oh,
side because
okay.
we have like a friendly but more of like a professional conversation. So
Well, fair enough. Well, I mean, well, let's put it this way. Sort of the kind of humor I like in movies. I mean, I grew up with Monty Python, and for those who know what the Goon Show is, they're just sort of that kind of slightly slapstick, nonsensical stuff tickles my sense of humor. But anyway, so when I was newly married, I think Evita's family was still very, formal, and and we just sort of had that formality between us, and so we had the wedding, which has obviously a seriousness about it and everything, and I took this photo of us, one of the wedding photos with her family and me in it, and I took it and I decided to Photoshop it and put us on a desert island in with a palm tree and a little it was for Christmas card, that's right, and a little Santa, a cartoon Santa down the bottom. And Evita was like, "Come on, you got to be serious, and you might be offended." Couldn't. And then a couple of years later, I was at her brother's place in Austin, Texas, and I saw he'd actually printed that photo out and framed it, and I was like, "Yes,
oh,
I've made a connection."
someone
So,
who understands.
so last year around Christmas, I was down in Texas again. Well, this Thanksgiving actually. So we had the photo for the Christmas card, and then they sort of said kind of quietly, "Do you think you could put us in space?" And so I'll show you what I did for this year's Christmas card. Is this
All
going to
right.
work?
Will
Can
I
you?
be able to see it, or is everybody else going to see it
Oh,
and I
you're not
won't?
going to be able to see it. Hang on, no, I can share
Send it
screen
to
with you. Hang on.
maybe you can like send it to me and I can see it.
No, I'll share screen with you as well. Hang on, this is possible. I
Oh,
can I
okay.
can do this. I can do this. Can I? Skype, yes. I don't know. Hang on. Oh gosh. Maybe you'll see it
I'll see it later.
on
No
put
worries.
on the live stream, or I'll show everybody else. Okay. So this is
No
the
worries. Yeah.
this is the photo. We're standing in the backyard of someone's house, and there was someone had the idea that we're holding flagpoles and we was going to be in space. So I was trying to do an ET thing. Anyway, this is what it turned into. Yoink. So for everyone else at home, playing at home, they can. I don't know if
Okay.
you can.
I'm looking at it on my iPad. I see the original photo.
Okay, it'll come up in a second.
Okay.
So yes, we've got this. This is the kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen those memes where it has, a picture of Gandalf, and then it says, "From great power comes great responsibility," and then it says Harry Potter. So it mixes all the different
Oh my gosh.
things,
I see.
and so we got Star Trek and Star Wars, just to push the buttons of certain people. Then Marvin the Martian, and Texas flag, and then the oh look, a baby Yoda down there.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, knowing how long this kind of stuff takes, that must have taken you a lot of hours.
Well, I didn't go. See, there's Baby Yoda, but you can see here. Look, see, I got a little lazy on the edges because, just like you were talking about the pixels
Yeah.
around the guitar. That's how I'm going to bring it back to our guitar discussion. Do you see
Hmm.
that? Do you see that smooth segue back to guitar?
Yeah, I see it. You're a pro at it. Well, I mean, we kind of got on a side, but it's sort of like it's the reality of being a professional guitarist. Maybe not just guitarists, but I feel like we kind of do a lot of things ourselves, and we venture out. We're teaching, we're performing, we're practicing, but also we do all of the managing things and the email writing and promotion and all of that. So this is kind of the reality. You're making your own CD. You did all of the musical parts, and if you like it and you can, the visual effects that come with it, like designing your own digipack, it's part of it. It kind of it creates a hobby in some ways, because we can be so locked up. Like, I listen to guitar music basically 8 hours a day, either between teaching students or playing myself. it's a lot. And then when people ask me, like, do you listen to music? Like, what do you listen to for fun? I don't listen to anything for fun because it's nice to just have quiet when there's no sound waves coming at you in whatever instrument. So this is kind of like the non-musical outlet that's still creative, still useful in my case.
Yeah, and I found I saved a ton of money on Christmas cards.
There you go.
I know when my friends of was in New Orleans several years ago, and all of Evita's connections, they all play trad jazz all day in day out. The gigging, and they just kind of get so done with that kind of music that they actually go specifically to these Delta blues bars or blues bars like just afterwards, just to kind of clean their ears out because they're so over here. That's their work music. They get kind of flooded with it.
Yeah, I sometimes just like quiet without any music, or like a movie or conversation or whatever. Just um, guitar music, I'll listen to it for research purposes, just to see like what's out there, how people are performing things, what pieces are out there. If I listen to music, it will most likely be classical because I'm a classical snob, and flamenco. I love flamenco. I'm very like I hear pop music and popular music and like rock and all of that, but it's mostly in that kind of stuff. It happens to be on my running track. If I'm like running, I'll have that in the background for like music, but I won't seek and put it on myself. And if it's classical music, it'll be non-guitar. It'll be orchestral, piano, violin, concertos, symphonies, sonatas, like something that has nothing to do with guitar.
Right.
Or just piece of quiet with no sound at all.
Well, we did have a demand. We didn't have a comment. We had a demand from Wayne Cooper saying, play guitar, please. Well, I guess please removes the demand, but I guess we could listen to some guitar music. It'd be a nice segue there. So I would like to play a few excerpts from your new album. It's oh man, I'm drawing a blank. It's been a long day. What's the name of your album again?
I called it the Grand Solos.
Grand Solo. Well, that would be a good place to start,
because
really.
Grand Solo is on there. So I thought it would be a brilliant idea to add an S and make it plural. I was not the only one who had that same idea because
really?
there's a CD that exists out there with Grand Solos by Stephen Robinson. And he had exactly the same idea. He had Grand Solo on his album and he decided to make it plural to refer to all of the other Grand Solos. But that was my very bright, unique idea that's not so unique. So Grand Solo is on there. I always wanted to record Bach because I love Bach. I just don't really have the chance to perform it because it's just takes so much energy to memorize and keep it memorized, and it takes so much pressure to like perform Bach. And sometimes in a concert setting, it's long. Like I don't want to just play a couple of movements. I want to play the whole entire suite. But that's 25 minutes of Bach, and not everyone in the audience is up for it. So I wanted to record that. So the Bach is on there, the Grand Solo is on there, Valses Poéticos is on there because it's currently what's in my repertoire. And I wanted to preserve these pieces because they're most likely going to leave my concert program soon because I've already played them enough times. La Vida Breve, which is like the most like my favorite, and I've played that for many years now. So that's probably going to leave my concert program. So I wanted to preserve that. And Cordoba by Albeniz. And I'll let you pick. I don't know.
I'd love to play little bits of different ones, and we can maybe just chat about this. So let's start. I think starting with So's Grand Solo would be a nice place to start. So I'm going to play a little bit of that one. We don't have to. We can't do anything. There's nothing to show, but we'll hear some music.
Okay.
We can dance. And they,
I noticed someone noticed your fancy fade.
great. That sounds so great. It's a lovely. That's amazing sound for having done that. You were kind of in the room where you're sitting right there, right?
Yeah, so this room is doesn't have any natural like echo or reverb. It has wooden walls, and it's not very big, but it's a studio apartment. So there is bedding, there is like chairs, and there's not a lot of hard surfaces, but there's a carpet and hardwood wood walls. So when I played, I was playing around of how to mic, and this was the first time I was recording with a stereo pair of the Neumann. So I played around with it a little bit. I'm not a sound engineer, so I wasn't going with any kind of scientific things. I just relied on my ears. I put the mics in different places, and I kind of found out that for my guitar, for my touch, if I had the mics about a foot away from my right hand, so I put them next to each other about a foot apart and a foot away from me. So it was kind of closely mic'd, I guess, because I wasn't trying to capture the sound of the room. I knew that I was going to use artificial reverb through the software that I was using, which was Logic Pro. That's what I ended up using. I wanted just like the pure guitar sound, and the rest of it, I didn't do any EQ because the way I practice and the way I'm preparing my pieces, I already have in mind how loud I want the basses and the trebles. Like that's already in the playing. So I didn't want to mess with it afterwards because I didn't find that I needed it. Like if the bass was louder, it's because it was intentional. I wanted that bass to be there louder. So when I was listening to it, I didn't feel the need to change anything. So there was no EQ done to it. The only thing that's done is a little life was put into it with some reverb so that it feels like you're playing in a larger space. Because when I listen to it without any reverb, that's how I did the initial editing. I edited, like you play and there's little buzzes and this and that. I did it without any of the reverb, so I could hear purely like what I'm playing. And then I also went and did it with the reverb because I noticed when I put the reverb back in, some of the squeaks in the left hand that initially weren't there. Like, first of all, I didn't hear them when I was playing them. And I didn't hear them without the reverb, but the reverb kind of made them a little louder.
Oh,
They come out a little bit more because it has like that higher frequency that just like was amplified. So I had to go and maybe clean a few of those. I didn't get rid of everything because I didn't want it to be totally fake. Like it's still playing, it's still live playing. Things happen when you play that it's not necessarily mistakes or wrong notes, but there's playing noise that happens from playing the guitar, and that's part of the guitar sound. I didn't want it to be totally sterile and absolutely clean of like any playing thing. So, and it would have been impossible. Like I would have had to re-record that specific place and be very careful not to squeak. And I can't even hear where I'm squeaking because it only comes up when the reverb is on. So, so I mic'd close, and the sound it's partially the guitar, partially me, and I try to, try to stay true to it. The reverb is the only thing that's added to it.
well, there's some questions coming through, but I think
Yeah.
what we might do is might listen to just a little segment of something else, and then we might dive into some of those questions. Do you have a track? What would you suggest we could follow that well? I've got sort of one track. I didn't get to download all of it. I got basically one track from all of the different pieces.
Oh, you mean do you have
I've got
well
like
the
the Bach.
prelude for Bach? The prelude for the Bach is available on YouTube. People actually, what you will hear on YouTube, like if you go to my channel and listen to the prelude, that is the track to the CD. I wanted it to be like an example of what the CD is. So when you listen to the audio of that prelude and you can watch the video, the audio is what the CD track has. So
Okay, well,
maybe not the Bach because that's available for everyone.
how about I do that? I might pop over to your YouTube channel because, and then I can play some video and the audio.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to try to read these questions and answer them. Let's see where they start.
Great.
There was one question I noticed about the noise the apartment. So I am incredible New York City to live in an apartment that has virtually no noise coming from the street, and that's because it's a quiet neighborhood, and there is a buffer. Like so, it's a ground floor of like row homes, and there's a backyard, and behind the backyard there is like a warehouse, and then a street that's not very noisy. So from the backside, if I close the windows, there's no street noise coming in. There is an elevated subway track, but it's not on like metal things. Like sometimes you see them in like movies, like the super loud subway tracks that New York City has. It's not like that. It's actually covered in like cement or whatever. So it's like very quiet. And then the other side, the front is there's a garage, and then there's like a little front yard, and then a very quiet street. So when all the doors and the windows are closed, the only noise that could possibly happen is in the winters from like the heating system, which this time it didn't interfere, and it usually is temporary, so I'll just stop. That happens all the time, like if I'm recording YouTube videos. Like sometimes I just have to like wait until the steamer stops, you know. So there was no noise from the apartment, and that's like just luck that a crowded, busy city like that would have.
All right, well, I'm going to play just another track. This will be the one I'm going to share the screen. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Here we go. Let's have a listen to this. We might not listen to the whole thing, but we'll play a bit of it.
I've had no complaints from the neighbors. Someone asked if I have neighbors haven't been complaining. Okay.
Yep. I'm very sorry to stop it there because I don't mean to cut that short, but obviously that's on your YouTube channel, so people.
Yeah, that's on my YouTube channel. And that was actually kind of interesting to do because all of my other YouTube videos that I've ever made, all of the audio and the video was recorded at the same time. So I would have, which is also done in my apartment, the fake brick wall that you see in the background is the opposite wall of this. So it's a cloth that, I mean, you could relate, you know, like we all have like these tiny little closets for apartments in New York. So one of my walls is covered with that fake cloth that looks like a brick wall. So usually what I do with the recording process, if it's an instructional video, I just have a microphone on my my camera. It's a Rode mic. And I just record on the same file because they're like easier pieces. I don't add any reverb for any of the etudes and everything. Those are just pure like quick teaching videos. The repertoire videos that I've been making up to this point, I would also have the video and the audio recorded at the same time. But the audio I would record with that Sony recorder, which is kind of like the Zoom recorder, just made by Sony. And again, I would do like 3 or 4 takes. The video and the audio would be like, I know it's take 1 and it has like the equivalent of it. I would clean up the audio a little bit. And in that case, because the video exists and back then I didn't have the ability to have different angles. There was only one angle. So that means you can't edit the video, because if you edit the video, like everything will be visible. I can't change sides and resync. So when I edited the video, it was the most time consuming thing, because anytime I changed a note, I would have to make sure I was replacing it with exactly the same millisecond duration, so that when I sync it back to the video, it matched up. Otherwise, the fingers wouldn't be in sync, because I can't manipulate the video, right? And I wouldn't do too much of it, because these are pieces that I play a lot, so I would maybe do 3 or 4 takes. And if like just little things happened where you're like, oh, that was so stupid, I can replace that buzz or whatever, I would replace that. I just had to make sure that it's the same duration when I'm cutting it and putting it in. This time, because the audio already existed, I actually recorded to my own track. So the video that you see, and not everyone will know this, like if you're watching it, that's not the sound you're hearing is not me playing. Like, it's me playing a month before. And then I had my recording on a Bluetooth speaker, and I recorded playing to my own recording, so I get all the rubatos the same, because we don't perform the same piece the same way. If you've really prepared well, our idea is, like with all of those technical exercises we do, all of that crazy learning and practicing, is so that you have the freedom to play what you feel in that moment and have your hands do it for you. So if you play it once or twice, you're not going to play it the same way. So I had to play it to my own recording to make sure I did the rubato exactly the same way. I took exactly the same time. I don't really like calculate that. It's always by feel. Every time I play it, it'll be different. So that was different. And this time I had I think I recorded 9 different angles. I only end up using like 4 of them maybe. The editing was simpler in this case, because I didn't have to, I had the audio, and I just had to make sure that when I cut sides that it's synced, so that my fingers match up. So what you see is you're hearing the CD track, but then you see a video that's synced, lip synced, finger synced.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of phenomenon that, because, well, one is very common in other musical fields. Pop music has music videos, and that's all synced, of course.
Yeah.
You can't sort of do a costume change and change location and still be in sync with music. And I did a little survey. It was several years ago, I think. I don't know. I think it was just by email or what. I'm not sure how I did it. But and I asked, because I was curious about this very topic, and asking, is this a problem for you? Or do you mind if this process is done, where you basically, when you're creating a video, you're playing along with it, like lip syncing? Mm-hmm. Or overdubbing, or whatever. Not overdubbing. Anyway, and the vast majority said that they don't have any problem with it, and they'd rather hear a polished version, sort of that the artist's rendition that they would like to be confident with put out there. And I mean, I totally get it. I was a little surprised, but I think that's where we are now, just with videos in general. That's sort of understood and expected, and I think I see the point that why would you, if you can make it exactly what you want it to be, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and the other thing is the visual part. Like, if you're going to record, you want like a live presentation of it. It limits where you can record, because now it has to be in a space that actually has good acoustics. You can't just rely on like how pretty it looks. And all of those videos that we see that are done outside, obviously the audio is not recorded outside. Mm-hmm. It's like this beautiful scenery with different changes and different angles, and someone's like crouched up on a rock playing. Like, that's pre-recorded in a studio. And then you put it together. So at first I was against it, because I wanted it to be like a true thing, like, no, this is me playing. And that's why I was recording it at the same time. So it was exactly the same. The audio was recorded on a different device, but it was recorded at that time when the video was. This was a unique thing, but I liked the process, because then I can make the audio the way I want it to be. with less limitations, and I can have all of these different angles because I can't record all those angles at the same time. That you need to have like 6
Yeah.
different cameras going, and I have 2 cameras, and I have to move them around, and it's more cohesive to have like the sound happen separately. I guess it depends on the purpose. If you want a live performance, you go to a concert,
Right.
and it's happened in a concert. Concerts are not perfect, and that's what makes it so amazing to see that music being made at that moment live. But if it's a recording and you're going to hear it multiple times, you probably don't want to hear the same mistake multiple times because it's predictable. So it's like now I'm more for it, and I think going forward, I'll most likely do the videos that way. I'll pre-record the audio with as much freedom and then play to it so it has like a visual with it.
Well, we're getting a masterclass in recording techniques here, which is great. Thank you.
I was reading these questions as you had the file. People were asking if I had like an engineer set it up. I didn't. And sometimes like you can be criticized by it and all of that, but mostly it was I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to see like, if it was possible. If I realized that it was really suffering from the sound quality, like I just couldn't get it to sound the way I wanted to, then I would of course ask a professional to help. But I experimented with different angles. I had the headphones going I was listening to it, and it went. I didn't have any science behind where to put the mics. It was just based on what I heard and what I wanted to hear, and I moved it around. So my mics, someone asked again, I had mentioned earlier, but they were about a foot away from the soundboard, like right out front of the guitar. One was a little like maybe over the 12th fret, and one was right on the right hand. What I learned is,
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say,
What I probably hold it maybe try a little bit further. Yeah.
Yeah, no, experimentation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's the name of the game, and you sort of get to learn your space as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to play one last track, and we have to play a bit of La Vida Breve because I said that in a very un-Spanish, slightly Australian accent. La Vida Breve. La Vida Breve. How would you? That's trying Italian.
But that's Italian.
Why are we doing this? I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, let's play this.
Italian.
This is such a great track, and I'm sorry for those. I warn you in advance. I will cut it off short, but of course you can all go and get the new album.
Breve, there is also a video of it done a few years ago, but it is also available on YouTube. This recording is newly done. Okay. It's not the same, but you could go watch it. It's a little tasting.
It's a little taster. It sounds fantastic, Gohar. I mean, tell us about that arrangement because it's kind of amazing.
It's probably like the number one question I get in general under the video and in general. So the arrangement is partially mine and partially for what's available online. If you literally Google La Vida Breve, one guitar, there'll be an image that comes up of like a handwritten score. It's like this yellowish, it looks like it's a handwritten, by a Japanese guitarist. I forgot, Fuji is the last name. Keigo Fuji. It's kind of, So I used that, and I had learned this piece totally prematurely when I was a teenager, had no business playing it, and I learned that specific arrangement. I was barely getting through it. Some parts were possible, and some parts were just totally impossible. And I learned it back then, and then obviously realized, this is I shouldn't be touching it. And then years later, I wanted to come back to it, but I didn't really like the arrangement as a whole as it was, because some of the octaves of the accompaniment and some of the notes that he decided to take out, I just didn't like it. And I was listening to other people playing, and I noticed like the octaves were different. So I changed things. I didn't write it down, because this the other question I get is like, where can I get it? I didn't write it down because it's so like I'm not very good at Finale and Sibelius, and for me to actually write the changes, it would have taken so much more time than just to memorize it. So I literally just memorized what I learned, how I changed it. I changed the octave of the accompaniment in the opening, like when the melody comes in. In that whole section where there are two guitars, it's kind of like in the middle. It looks totally crazy, like it's up here with like two voices at the same time. He had taken a note out of the second guitar. Like if you're familiar with the Pujol or the Pujol arrangement for the two guitars, there's a scale part in the second guitar and a da 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 like that at the top with the trill at the top guitar, the first one. So he took a note out of the second guitar, which broke the scale, but he kept the trill in that first guitar. So I decided to. It's impossible to do both together. I mean, it is possible, but it would probably slow me down. So I decided to put that note back in so that the scale is complete, and took away the trill from the first guitar. So the first guitar still holds its own, but at that point it's more of the accompanimental role, and the scale is more important. So I did those kind of changes, like balanced it out a little bit. Right before the long scale, all of the orchestral arrangements that I've heard, and Paco de Lucia's arrangement for the two guitars, it's all up an octave, like the top line da ya da dam da ya da, like so. In his arrangement, it was in the middle voice. It was on the third string where no one can hear it. So I changed that and I moved it to the upper voice so that it kind of like at least resembled what the orchestra kind of sounds like. There's obviously you can always make more improvements to it, but that's kind of what I settled with. I learned it, and it's such a hard piece that I'm not doing it now. Just I'm gonna keep it the way it is. So the arrangement is a mix of.
So I think it's such. I mean, I imagine if you've been playing since a teenager, you probably live with you for the rest of your career. But it is a really nice idea to say, look, I want to have this down. I want to have it for this is my recorded version, and show all that work that went into it over the years. It's really great. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, you have to know when to stop trying to be a perfectionist.
Right.
There's always like you can always make it better. So as I'm listening to all of this and I'm trying to edit or trying to make it better, there is always room for improvement, But there comes a point where you can be like, okay, this is enough. It's good enough for now, and that good enough cannot be a mediocre kind of like middle thing. It still has to be good to your standards, what you think is awesome. But could I make it better? Sure. Would it be productive to spend all of my time to try to make it just like a little bit better and then still not achieve what you want? Or just put it in the way it is now and learn other repertoire and bring those to as much as you can. And it's because we're all perfectionists, all like the musicians, and we're all crazy. And you need to know when to stop at some point.
Yes, agreed. So when is it out?
So right now until Sunday there is a crowdfunding happening. So on Indiegogo, I didn't do Kickstarter because Indiegogo just seems a little bit smaller, a bit more friendly. So I'm waiting until Sunday until the crowdfunding ends, because one of the tiers in the crowdfunding is like a thank you in the actual box of the CD. So I can't send it in until everyone comes in, and I need to know whose names I'm going to put in on the CD. So as soon as that's over on Sunday, I'll finalize the cover, the actual digipack. I will probably listen to all of the tracks one more time just to see like if I missed anything. See, perfectionist coming through.
Don't do it, Gohar. Just let it go.
No, I have to. What I realized, like one of the things, because I'm doing my own mastering, I want to make sure that I have the right distance, like spacing between tracks. So now what I found out listening to the whole thing, I want the valses to be closer together. So I have like pretty much uniform timing between all of the separate pieces and all the Bach movements, but the valses are supposed to be presented as one piece. And even though every single valse is a different track, when you listen to it, I want it to flow from one to another. So I have to go and shorten them. I don't want disc makers, the manufacturing company I'm using to print the discs, I don't want them to mess with it. So the way I send it to them has to be the way I want it. So I need to get the valses closer. So I do have to listen to it one more time. And so the plan is to send it in midweek next week. And then hopefully if the factory doesn't run out of toilet paper and is still open, then
Wow.
they promise the return in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I'm assuming it's going to be slower just because there's probably less staffing. The postal service will be a little slow. In the Indiegogo campaign, I said May release. So accounting for any other things, I wasn't expecting the coronavirus, but I knew that usually what you say, like you need extra. So I'm planning for May. Hopefully I get it sooner. But
Yes. Well, no one expects the coronavirus. Could you put the link to the Indiegogo in the chat?
I think so. Yeah, actually, that would be really helpful. I'm like so close to getting to the end. Let me just see. Why is it not letting me open? So give me one moment. It's on my website. There is a way to access it through my website, but I will make it easier for everyone. I am 91% there.
Nice. I have the feeling you'll get there for sure. Well, that's great. It's
And
very
I'm
exciting.
like, when you think about these things, I'm only trying to cover the actual expenses. I didn't put in the time. Like if I had it done at a studio, for example, with the studio time, with the engineer editing, like all of that, it would have cost so much more to make this. So this only basically includes the manufacturing costs, the copyrights, because even though all of these pieces are public domain pieces, you are playing someone else's arrangement for some of them. Like Valses Poéticos, I'm playing Paolo Pegoraro's arrangement. So there's the publication. So I have to get copyrights for that.
Right.
So there's all of that, and then just like the cost of the equipment and all that to be able to produce it. So, but I'm getting close, and it's gonna happen.
Nice. Well, congratulations. I look forward to hearing it. Well, I've got to hear some of it too, which is great. Well,
Yeah,
Goha, let's see if there's any. I'm just having a quick
yeah. Let's
scan
see if
back. If
there's
there's any
anything.
questions, we might wrap
We've
it
been
up soon.
chatting along about from photography to the moon photography and everything else. But if there's guitar questions, I mean, this is a guitar class website.
Well, it's not so. You know what? These days, I think this is just a chance for people to have a little bit of levity and distraction from what's going on. So, hence the appearance of Baby Yoda in this stream.
Right. I see there's a question about it being available on like Amazon Music or Spotify or like Apple Music, and maybe you can like advise me. I was kind of against putting the CD as a streaming, like available for streaming for like Spotify, mostly because like it's kind of like as an idea, I'm against how they're treating musicians, like the Spotify, like how little musicians get paid for streaming their music. And I'm talking about like the smaller group of us, like the classical musicians who maybe get like, I don't know, 100 streams, not Beyonce's of the world. So I didn't want to do it and just like give it out for free because it does so much work goes into that CD in terms of like a lifetime of practicing, the hours it took to record. So I wasn't going to make it available digitally as a streaming service, but I would most likely do it as a download because I realized my computer does not have a CD player. So I know that like the physical copy is not everyone's cup of tea anymore. So the question about the Amazon and stuff, it will most likely be available as a download on my website and maybe even like through Apple Music and stuff, but it won't be a streaming thing where you like subscribe and you can access everything.
Did you ever get any requests for vinyl? Like, how did that work out?
Yeah, I wanted to because I thought it would be so cool to have a vinyl record, and then I looked into how much it costs to actually make it, and it's really really expensive in terms of if I wanted to make, let's say, the minimum of like 100 copies, that's kind of like the first starting point through disc makers, it would be about $2,000 to make 100 copies, like 1900
Wow.
or because so it comes up about $20 of a disc. That's their first thing, and then the next price cut is at about $300, 300 copies, which exponential, like it's just so much. And the amount of people who would actually buy it and spend that money on it, it didn't seem realistic. for a little while I had a tier on Indiegogo, but then I quickly deleted it because it wouldn't justify itself. And if I wanted to make just a couple, then it's from like smaller manufacturers. They charge $50 per disc that they have to press.
Right.
Do 10, it's like 40. So it's really expensive to make for that novelty of like, oh, having a vinyl record of it. So I decided against it, even though it would have been super cool. But it just didn't.
Maybe you could just make one and put it in the frame on your wall and have the, like the platinum
Right.
album thing.
And the other problem actually was that my CD is about an hour long. It's 58 minutes and some change. And if I wanted to do like the high quality, I think it's 22 minutes per side or 21 minutes per side. And even if I wanted to do long play, like if I wanted to do LPs, it's still up to 45 minutes or 50 minutes. Like I couldn't fit all of the tracks on the vinyl. So I would have had to pick and choose, which ones to put. And I didn't want to do that, just to be like, here's just the Bach on the vinyl, so
Right.
it was a dream that did not come true. But a
Well,
lot of thought was given to it.
yeah, well, that's a cool idea. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say to our lovely audience? Thank you, everyone, for sticking around for the whole hour. But
Yeah, it's amazing for everyone who showed up. A lot of familiar names, someone that I don't know, but hopefully I will know in the future. I don't know if there are any questions, anything related, like from you, from them. I'm happy to answer.
it's always tricky because there's a 30 or 40-second delay between us talking and then them seeing it. So it's sort of we'll just chit chat in the interim if there are any questions coming through. But how do people get in contact with you if they want to have Skype lessons? Because I often refer people to you for Skype lessons.
Yes, you do. I have gotten a couple where through the grapevine, people get to you and then they get to me. It's easy. My website, if you go to my website, which is my first name, lastname.com, there's a contact form. You can contact me through there. That's usually like the best because I don't really check like the direct messages in my social media because there's a lot of like spammy things that come in, like really irrelevant things that come in. Through the website, I figured like the person who's going to make the effort to actually go to my website, read the lessons page, and write me an email, then it's more serious, so like it's so easy to social media to like quickly send a message, but it takes so much time to reply to all of these. So I direct everyone through email and I check my email and I reply to them way more frequently than direct messages, which I really just don't check because it ends up being too time consuming.
Right.
And filtering through the random things that come through already is time consuming. So that's like the best way probably.
Okay, cool.
And I'm trying again to for
well, Carrie and Mark are saying thank you, and Wayne saying thank you. So is Linda. So yeah, thank you very much for spending some time. And I know you had to shuffle some students around today, but thank you for doing that. We all appreciate it.
It was no problem. Now everyone's sitting at home, so it was no problem moving a student an hour here and there.
Right.
And I don't know if Linda from Germany, if she's watching, but if she's watching, there is a crystal hanging here.
Yes.
Me during the summer workshop. You probably can't see, but there's a crystal right here that she gave us during the summer school, and it's hanging right behind me.
Nice. It's gone around the world and it's found its way to New York City. We have ours in a window, and in the summer it sort of catches, and at a certain time in the afternoon you get this rainbow thing random past the apartment. So
yeah,
right.
I could find a better place for it, but right now it's just reflecting my desk light. So.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, Gohar, and stay healthy, take care, and maybe we'll touch base again in a few weeks or something. See how you're doing.
Yeah, sounds good. We're probably going to keep in touch even more now that we can't see each other in person.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
All right. Well, I hope everyone else around the world is staying healthy and with the spirits up. It's a great opportunity to sit at home and practice. Like that's what I was saying, like if you didn't have the time for it before, now you do.
It absolutely is a good time for that.
Learn your repertoire, work on technique. There's lots of ways to distract ourselves.
All right. Take care, Gohar. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, of course, to Gohar. her album. It's kind of a nice format where we get to talk about the albums because you get to play some of the tracks and get to hear a bit about behind it. So I'll be reaching out to some other artists, friends of CDC, to have some chats just like this. And of course, it wouldn't be worth it if no one came. So thank you so much for coming to have a listen. I'll see you all very soon, and take care, everyone. Bye bye.